Let's talk about Stockholm Syndrome, one of psychology's most misunderstood ideas.
To get it, you have to imagine your world shrinking down to just one terrifying room.
Your future is just the next breath your captor decides to give you.
This whole thing got its name from a real bank robbery in 1973. It was wild.
So why would hostages defend their captors? Well, the answer isn't what you'd think.
First off, this isn't a choice, and it's definitely not a sign of weakness. It's an unconscious survival trick the brain pulls when it's pushed to the edge. So how does this happen? It all starts with losing complete and total control.
Everything that makes you you is just gone. You have zero personal power.
You're basically forced back into a childlike state, totally dependent on your captor. Everything, food, water, even the right to speak, is now a gift from them.
And in that terror, something fascinating happens inside the brain. It just shifts gears.
The logical, thinking part of your brain, it gets totally overwhelmed by the trauma.
So the primal, instinctual part of the brain takes the wheel. Its only job, survive.
Right and wrong, future plans, none of it matters. It's all about surviving this second.
With everything gone, the mind desperately needs something to hold on to, a new anchor.
And in this new, terrifying reality, all power comes from just one person. That's why a victim latches on, not out of affection, but because that person is their lifeline.
So you see, it's not a broken mind. It's a shocking display of how adaptable we are.
I mean, it just seems to defy all logic, right? But the answer is deep in our survival instinct.
See, pure terror just makes you comply. It doesn't create loyalty. The real key is way more complex.
Okay, so put yourself in this situation. You're a hostage. Your entire world is just one single threat.
In that state, your brain simplifies everything. It sees your captor in only one way.
100% threat. That's it. The person who could end your life.
But then, something happens. A tiny moment that shatters that entire reality.
A simple act of kindness. To you and me, it's nothing. But to the hostage, it's everything.
It's like a single drop of water in a vast desert. A total psychological earthquake. So suddenly, the brain is facing this conflicting evidence. It creates a huge internal battle.
The captor is both the monster and the potential savior. It's this impossible paradox.
That conflict is called cognitive dissonance, and the brain absolutely has to resolve it to survive.
So a new, totally primal math for survival kicks in. It's all subconscious.
The logic becomes simple. I need to encourage that kindness. My survival depends on their human side.
So they latch onto this hope, like a drowning person grabbing driftwood. It's a lifeline.
Because that small kindness, it's not just about mercy. It's a perceived shift in power.
Suddenly, the hostage has a new purpose. It's not just about surviving, it's about influencing.
So they try to nurture that human side, because keeping the good captor alive keeps them alive.
And this, right here, this is the very heart of what we call trauma bonding.
Okay, so let's unpack the powerful psychology behind this really strange phenomenon. Well, it all starts with one thing, being completely and totally isolated from the outside world.
This creates an intense environment, a crucible, with no other voices for a reality check.
And inside this bubble, you get this bizarre us versus them dynamic taking hold.
So think about it. To us, the police are rescuers, but inside that room, they're a danger. Suddenly, sirens aren't a sign of rescue. They represent a shared threat. And in a twisted way, the captor becomes the only thing protecting them from that chaos. In those long hours, the hostage starts seeing the world through the captor's eyes.
With no other voice to argue, the captor's story, it just starts to sink in.
The reasons behind the crime, at least from their perspective, start to become clear.
And this helps humanize the person with the gun, which actually reduces the terror. You see, it's not a betrayal. It's just the mind adapting to unbelievable stress. Their survival becomes totally linked. They form what you could call a tribe of two. The hostage's logic flips. Now, the captor's survival literally means their survival.
And here's the thing. The bond isn't just a strategy anymore. It's something more.
It's become a battlefield alliance, forged in this incredibly intense, shared experience.
It's a question that just doesn't make sense, right? It goes against every survival instinct.
Well, imagine being in a crisis so bad that who you are becomes a problem.
That person you were before, the parent, the student, they're actually a danger now.
So for you to live, that old self has to basically become a ghost.
Psychologists have a name for this: ego death. It's a retreat from a self that can't function. So what takes its place? A new self, one built for just one thing: survival.
And that's how you get the good hostage. But who decides what good means?
Yep, the captor does. They're suddenly the only one whose approval matters.
So think about what a simple phrase like this could mean in that situation.
Hearing that, it feels like a blessing. It proves this new identity is working.
So the hostage starts trying to find a purpose, to prove they have value.
Now this isn't betrayal, it's just a desperate attempt to get a little control back. And here's the tragic twist: their loyalty actually starts to shift. So when you see them protecting their captor, it's not what it looks like.
They're really protecting that fragile new self that was born in that very room.
So, imagine this. You're rescued, but it feels like you're being kidnapped all over again. To get that, you have to understand how trauma can literally rewire the human mind. See, this isn't a sign of a broken mind. It's one that did whatever it took to adapt.
We're talking about a trauma bond. It's a subconscious strategy for surviving extreme danger.
So how does this happen? It usually follows a pretty disorienting four-step process.
In this messed up reality, the source of your fear is also your only source of comfort.
And the key thing to remember is this: it's the brain just trying to live.
But getting rescued isn't the end of it. In a way, a whole new kind of pain begins. You get this huge clash between what the world expects and what the survivor actually feels.
Right? The world sees in black and white, but for the survivor, everything was just gray.
And that mismatch leads to this deep, terrible shame and a feeling of being totally alone.
And here's the crazy part: that isolation can actually make the bond feel even stronger.
We have to see this not as a weakness, but as a scar from winning a battle.
The strategy worked, for sure, but it leaves behind a lot of psychological shrapnel.
This really gets to the core of it. The mind was forced to accept a terrible truth.
The brain had to solve an impossible puzzle. What if the monster is also the savior?
And it shows that under enough pressure, the line between love and fear can disappear entirely.